Hello and welcome to the Public Health Leadership and Policy Podcast. I'm Sarah, a Master of Public Health student, and today I have a very special guest, someone I deeply admire as a leader. I chose him specifically because he brings a leadership story that spans two continents, two cultures, and some genuinely high pressure environments. For more than 6 years, he has led finance teams in demanding settings, starting in Canada, where he started his leadership career at the Tlingit Council, a First Nation government in the Yukon. Then he led the finance department for the Yukon First Nation wildfire, where steady leadership under pressure wasn't optional. He holds a Master of Accounting and completed the CPA final exam, one of North America's most rigorous qualifications. So he pairs real people leadership with serious analytical discipline. Today, he has brought all of that home, where he now leads the tax and accounting department at Hilti Saudi Arabia. I'm so excited to explore what his experience means for those of us in public health. Please welcome Muhammad al-Dosari. Thank you so much, Muhammad, for joining me today.
And thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So, to start, could you take us back to the beginning of your career and tell us how you first found yourself stepping into a leadership role?
Sure. I started my leadership career at Tlingit Council, a First Nation government that was formed as part of the final transfer agreement between the Canadian government and the First Nation communities, granting them the right to govern their lands. I was hired as part of their initiative to hire experts to transfer knowledge, train the community, and help in managing the government.
That's really fascinating. Would you tell us a bit about those early years before experience became your guide? What were some of the fears you encountered and how did you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge any leader would face when stepping into a new role is earning the trust of the team. So, to earn the trust of the community, I started learning about the historical context of the First Nations in Canada, learning about the constitution of the council specifically. That helped me to develop empathy and showed me the common values that I share with the community, such as respect for all human beings. As for the team, I knew earning their trust will take more work, especially since I was the youngest in the team, and many of them have been working there for a very long time. So I started by understanding what was going right and the challenges that each team member faced. The focus was to help them overcome these challenges. With that approach, I was able to earn their trust, which allowed me to move to the next stage, which is bringing change.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me, Mohammed. That definitely takes a lot of self-awareness to recognize. So, looking back at that early version of yourself, before managing the finance team, have you always thought of yourself as a leader? Or is it something you found yourself in and developed over time?
Thinking back, I don't think I thought of myself as a leader, but I noticed that I always stepped in to lead when it was necessary. Bringing people together was something I did naturally. Understanding the mission and aligning everyone's effort towards that mission was something I did without even thinking. So I would say I found myself in a leadership position.
That's interesting. So, what do you think about the people who still didn't see themselves or they don't see themselves as leaders and didn't recognize their own capabilities as leaders? Do you think that it's a mindset issue? And is there a way for them to uncover their leadership potential?
I think circumstances and the right opportunity give birth to leaders. Being able to reflect on how one handles challenges, being able to take charge, and leading when no one does. And recognizing that within themselves is a good indicator if someone is a leader or not.
That actually brings me to something I've been curious about. Do you think that you need a particular personality type or style to be a leader?
I think leadership is less about personality and more about a mindset. Strong leaders think in terms of ownership, not blame, growth, not ego, and service, not authority. They focus on long term, stay adaptable, and are willing to make tough decisions with clarity. At the end of the day, leadership isn't about who you are, it is about how you think and how you show up to others.
Interesting. That actually shifted my perspective. Thank you for that. On a related note, what do you think are the toughest aspects of being a leader in your field, in the finance field?
I would say making tough decisions that have a direct impact on people. Sometimes the organization might go through tough times, which require tough measures to adapt. Some of these tough decisions you might have to take would involve restructuring the organization, which result in people losing their jobs. In my opinion, that would be one of the toughest aspects of being a leader in the finance.
So, from what you've said, I I just understand that challenges are inevitable in leadership. So, how do you think leaders can best tackle them, regardless of their field?
Challenges are part of the job in leadership, no matter the industry. What makes difference is how you deal with them. I would say the best leaders do not waste time blaming. They take ownership and move straight into problem solving mode. They stay flexible when things change, communicate clearly when things get tough, and make decisions even when they don't have all the answers. And more importantly, they use those challenging times to build trust and make their teams stronger.
That's such a valuable takeaway. And finally, Mohammed, you've been both a manager and a leader throughout your career. And these two words are often used interchangeably. In your experience, is there really, is there like a difference between the two, or they're just the same?
Yeah, there is a difference. A manager is typically focused on processes, structure, and making sure things run smoothly in the day to day. However, a leader, on the other hand, is focused on direction, people, and impact. They're thinking about where the team is going and how to bring people along. However, they're not mutually exclusive. The strongest professionals are both. They can manage the work and lead people. But if I were to draw the line, management is about control, while leadership is about influence.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Mohammed. And that actually brings us to the end of the first part of our conversation. And now we're moving into the second part, where I would like to shift the focus a little and reflect on my own leadership journey. I've been reading about authentic leadership, which is characterized by self awareness, the ability to foster positive relationships, and rational transparency. And this is particularly relevant to public health, where building trust with the communities through transparency is essential for a meaningful engagement. So, based on your own journey as a leader, did you adopt this leadership style?
Yeah, I would say over time I naturally moved in that direction, even before I had a name for it. Early on, I was more focused on delivery and getting things right. But as you grow, you realize leadership is much more about people and trust. Authentic leadership really comes down to being self aware, being honest, and not pretending to have all the answers. I found that when you're transparent, especially in tough situations, it actually builds more credibility, not less. And the relationship piece is huge. When people feel you're genuine and consistent, they engage differently. So I wouldn't say I consciously adapt the label, but looking back, those principles became a big part of how I lead.
Interesting. So, would you tell me, like, how did this leadership style shape your team, and how did the people respond to that?
It had a bigger impact than I expected. When you lead that way, more open, more self aware, more transparent, people start to trust you differently. They are more willing to speak up, challenge ideas, and actually take ownership themselves. I noticed the team became more engaged and less afraid of making mistakes because they know the focus wasn't on blame, it was on learning and improving. And on a personal level, the relationship got stronger. Conversations became more real, not just transactional. So over time, it shifted the culture from just getting work done to actually building a team that supports each other and perform better because of it.
That actually leads me to reflect on my own journey. As someone transitioning from a clinical background into research and public health, I've been heavily focused on technical skills, but I've come to realize that technical skills are not enough in the real world, and that leadership requires a completely different set of skills that are just as important. Reflect on that. One strength I believe that I bring is emotional intelligence, including self-awareness and reflection. I'm conscious of my own values and emotions and how they influence the people around me. And I also draw on that awareness when engaging with diverse communities. And to further develop this, I'd love to work more directly with vulnerable communities, particularly in settings where cultural sensitivity and emotional awareness are essential to building trust. And I can see a parallel in your own experience leading the First Nation community. So, how did you develop and apply emotional intelligence in that context?
That's a great reflection. And honestly, that shift you're describing is something a lot of people only realize later. Technical skills get you in the door, but emotional intelligence is what actually allows you to connect, influence, and make a real impact. In that kind of setting, especially working with First Nation communities, emotional intelligence is not optional, it is essential. For me, it really started with listening more than speaking, taking the time to understand context, history, and perspective without rushing in with solutions. Self awareness played a big role as well, being conscious of my own assumptions and how I might be perceived. You learn pretty quickly that trust isn't built through expertise alone. It is built through consistency, respect, and showing genuine intent over time. And I think one of the biggest lessons was humility, accepting that you are not the expert in every room. Sometimes your role is just to create space, to understand, and to support. Once people feel that, the engagement becomes real and meaningful.
Interestingly, you mentioned active listening, which is a very important and a key element of emotional intelligence, and which I also believe is an essential skill to practice. I really appreciate that perspective. That's something I'll definitely carry with me. And building on that, there is also one area that I'm still working on, which is communication skills, which are vital in public health, where we translate evidence and research into action, advocate for policy changes, and also collaborate with diverse stakeholders. And I frankly struggle with simplifying data and clinical information to general audience. So, having led large teams in finance, I assume communication is critical to your role. Is that right?
Yeah, communication is absolutely critical. And what you're describing is something I've seen a lot. When you're close to the data or the technical side, it's easy to forget that not everyone speaks that language.
So, how would you suggest I develop this skill further?
What helped me over time was shifting my mindset from explaining everything to making it understandable and useful. It is not about simplifying because the audience cannot understand. It's about respecting their time and giving them what actually matters. A few things really helped me. First, start with the so what before the details. What does this mean? Why should someone care? And what action should be taken? Then you can layer in the details if needed. Excuse me. Second, practice translating your message for different audiences. The way you explain something to a technical colleague should be completely different from how you would explain it to a policymaker or a community group. And honestly, the biggest one is just practice. Putting yourself in situations where you have to explain complex ideas in simple terms, getting feedback and adjusting. Over time, you develop that instinct. You already have the emotional intelligence piece, which is huge. That's actually what allows you to read the room and adapt your message. So it's really just about building that translation layer between what you know and what others need to hear.
That's such a valuable point, I believe. And this actually aligns with what I already had in mind, where I actually plan to volunteer for different opportunities where I can present health research to non-specialist audience, which I also believe that will help me become stronger and more effective communicator. I think what I will take away from this is the importance of knowing your audience before you communicate anything. Thank you so much, Mohammed. So before we wrap up, is there one piece of advice you would give to an emerging public health leader who is just starting their journey?
If I had to leave one piece of advice, it would be this: do not underestimate the power of trust. In public health, you're not just working with data, you're working with people's lives, beliefs, and communities. So take the time to listen, understand, and build genuine relationships. Your technical skills will get you credibility, but it's your ability to connect, communicate, and show up consistently that will create real impact. If people trust you, they will engage with you. And that's where meaningful change actually happens.
Interesting. And this is actually the perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for your time, Muhammad, your generosity, and your insights today. This conversation has genuinely given me a lot to reflect on, both as a public health professional and as an emerging leader. I truly appreciate it, Muhammad. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and best of luck with your career. I know you're going to be a great leader. You have asked all the right questions, and I think you have the mindset of a emerging leader. Thank you.
Thank you so much.